All right. World. So you see the title. We're going to try to come to a logical conclusion of the per 100,000 murder rate in the African and African American communities, and we'll look at some of the similarities and some of the differences and some of the outliers, and we'll come up with some conclusions. I'm here with my brother Rodney. Of course, I'm Antoine. Go ahead, Rodney.
You know me, I'm Rodney Cameron, Rodney of Rodney Cameron Productions. I've already introduced myself on several videos. You can watch some of the old ones and get some more of my introduction there. World.
All right. Hey, so when I brought this topic up to you earlier, man, I mean, what do you think about the topic, and what do you think about that 100,000 murder rate?
Well, the way we got onto it was kind of was key, I think, and that's talking about what's safe. Where are you actually safe, and that makes this topic really important because people have to be able to look at the numbers and understand what areas might be the safest place to be. Um, and when you're looking at murder rates, a lot of it has to do because unfortunately, I'm not going to say unfortunately, fortunately, when you find these areas where there's high crime and high murder rates, they're generally going to be all happening in the same type of area. Like if there's a high murder rate, they're not these murderers aren't driving out to the suburbs in the nice areas where there's police coverage and killing a bunch of people. It's generally in a poor area where everybody's co-located, they kill each other and everything happens right there. So when you think about safety and where you want to be, I think it's key to understand what parts of where you are. And you kind of have to take this not just at a citywide level, you have to look at it literally on almost a block by block basis.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with you. So what I have pulled up right now is a website. Anybody can get at it. It's called Hey Jackass. I think it's pretty useful a lot of times just to let us see how severe the issue is in Chicago with crime in general. So it actually tracks every murder, but then it also has a breakdown of all the statistics, who committed the murders, and how they committed the murders, where the person is shot, who's the assailant, as far as race, age, sex, so, that type of information. So we want to look specifically at just the black murder rate. So let's look at how many of these murders were committed by black assailants, black victims, should I say, not black assailants.
I can't read what's on there. Is there anything that says why these people were murdered?
Um, no. Well, yeah, I think there's actually a piece that does say why.
Was it gang violence or was it more robbing people or just kind of
But
curious?
sometimes it's like, yeah, I think it does have a breakdown also, but hold on a second. Police involved shootings, deadliest hoods, shot placement. It tells you where they were actually shot, but I'm looking for race. Do a control fire, find race. Here we go. Race of victim and assailant. All right, so black victims. You have 400 black victims year to date. All right, so we're looking at 2018. Let's go back a year just so we can see a complete year. Even though this year is almost done, I mean the tally is still rising, right? So let's look at
Mhm.
the previous year. Close this out. Mhm. I moved this to the smaller screen. Now I can't see. I get 2017. Control find 2017. And you'll have to bear with me while I go through this. Chicago Crime 2017. Let's see if this is it. Yeah. Yeah, this is 2017. So 2017, race of victim assailant, we had 527 black victims. All right, then let's go to how black is Chicago. Chicago, as we can see, is approximately 2.7 million people, and 32% of the population is black. So we'll do the quick math. 32% of 2.7 million gives us somewhere around 875,000. Let's pull up the calculator. I'll pull that up over there.
874,999.
All right. Rodney, divide 500, what was it, 28 by 874. Don't even put the three zeros on the end because it'll give you some exponent number. We don't need that.
But let me pull up a calculator here.
World, bear with us as we do the math. And the reason I'm doing the math on there instead of having already done the math, we did. But I want you guys to see the process. I want you to see the process.
Welcome to math class. Now, what was the question there?
527 divided by 874.
60%.
All right, so that's 60 per 100,000. So you just take the first two numbers, and that'll give you the per 100,000. If you do it, you could do it where you put the whole 100,000 in there, but then it'll give you an exponent, and I don't know, it's just messy. So
it's already
60 out of 100,000 persons, black people in Chicago, get killed. So the reason we're only figuring for the black people is, well, I can tell you why. Let's see how many of these victims were white. We'll go back to Hey Jackass. And let's look at white victims. Control find RA 20. Okay, there were 20 white victims. And what percentage of Chicago is white? Chicago is control find white I-T-E. Chicago is 45% white. 45% of 2.7 million. Can you do that for me, Rodney?
Let's see. 2.7. Wait, where? Well. 2 times 45%.
Yep.
Talking 1,215,000.
All right, let's divide 20 by 1,200.
It's 45,000.
So if I'm not, that's 0.45. Is that 4.5 or 0.45? I think that's half a person per 100,000.
Yeah, it's probably what you were getting at. I think you might have threw some numbers in there a little wrong.
No, I just take the last three off. I always take the last three off. So it's the last three zeros I take them off, or last three 10 places I take them off. Anyway, we're talking about.
You can write this out and show your work, son.
1,200,000 white people, only 20 of them were murdered. All right. So per 100,000, you're dealing with a half a person per 100,000 killed. Where with black people, it's 60 per 100,000 black people are killed. All right. You might say, hey, how do we get our numbers? Whatever else. We did the work. Anybody would tell you that is the actual factor that we're looking at. That's the problem set that we're looking at. So if somebody says, well, you know, white people murder each other too. White on white crime, 90% of white people are murdered by other white people. They can tell you that all day. But when it comes to how many, your chances of being killed as a white person, only half a person out of 100,000 white people get murdered, where 60 black people out of every 100,000 get murdered in the city of Chicago. This is the strange part. And for this, I'm going to switch to Wikipedia. Looking at some other stuff. Where are we at? Right here. And it starts to talk about the murder rates in different countries. All right, so just keep your eyes on this column right here. In St. Helena, Africa, there are 0 murders, but I believe that's because there are 0 people in St. Helena, Africa. So would have been nice. And then we have the Northern European countries. And I'm not sure how, I don't know these countries. I know Vatican City is very small. Andorra, I know, is a very small country. So they have 0 murders or 0 murder rate. Let's see, when we hop down to Macau in Asia, and it's 0.16. Northern Europe, Iceland, 0.3. Singapore, very low. I was in Korea. Where's Korea at on here? I want to be South Korea. I lived there. Their murder rate is 0.7. I can tell you that living in a country that has a 0.7 murder rate is like living in a country that, to me, coming from the United States, seemed like it had no crime at all. I never remember them reporting on any murders. And if they did have a murder, I'm pretty sure that would be like countrywide news. Because this 26, 28 million people, their murder rate is extremely low. All right. Still in Europe, 0.75. Let's slide all the way down to the very bottom. Let's see which countries have the highest murder rates. El Salvador, murder rate of 82. You might as well round up to 83. Honduras, 56. The Virgin Islands. Sound like someplace you might want to be, but probably not. The murder rate is around 50. Now, remember, Chicago was around 60. If we only...
And all these numbers are out of 100,000 people.
All these numbers out of 100,000. And I think it says that at the top. Yes, it says it right here. Rates are calculated per 100,000 inhabitants. All right. So it seems like, to me, most of your countries in the Americas, Jamaica, 47. Jamaica had 1,354 murders in 2016. Jamaica only has 2.7 million people. Right? So it's about the same size as Chicago. And it's all black. And that's, look, so what we're doing right now is not dissing our people. What we're doing is looking at the numbers and looking at the murder rate to see how safe places are. And this is what I want to talk about. Let's look for Ghana. And some of these other African countries, right? Let's go up to Ghana. Where is Ghana? Kenya. Ghana is way up here. 1.4. What am I missing? Here it is. 1.68. Ghana has 1.68 murders per 100,000, which is actually a lot better than some of these other countries, right?
Hey, do you have India on there?
And India should be on here too. Control, fine. India is 3.22.
Okay. Damn. China. Look, check out China. And Japan.
China is 0.62. The Asian countries, for the most part, are going to be very low.
Okay.
Japan, 0.28.
So the reason I'm asking these questions about these other countries too is because in my mind, I want to understand why. You know, I'm a big proponent of understanding why the situation is what it is so that I can figure out possibly a way to fix it, right? So I think we talked earlier about Thomas Sowell. I don't know if you're ready for me to get into that part yet.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. So one of Thomas Sowell's books, I think it's Black Rednecks and White Liberals, maybe White Liberals, Black Rednecks. He explained how a lot of the thug culture that some Black people do claim, and maybe do have, of the eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, you disrespect me, I'll shoot you, I'll kill you, that type of thing, didn't come from Africa. He explained that that culture actually came from the poor white people who migrated from England, because it wasn't the rich, you know, well-to-do, highly sophisticated people that actually came here. it was the ones who didn't have much in England. They were poor and they had a whole different mindset. And they came to this country and started up America basically with slavery and all the different things they did. But they took these African slaves, and the African slaves didn't know anything, so they picked up that mentality. They picked up some of that English they learned came from them. The mannerisms and what was right and wrong basically came from them. So his theory is, or his statement is, that culture, that eye for an eye, tooth for tooth, that I think would cause a lot of murders, and maybe what's been happening, it came from there, and I think that's still why in certain areas of the world where there are a lot of Black people, and we talked earlier about the murder rate being high, I think in Haiti, in Jamaica, in the U.S., in different areas where there's a lot of Black people, anywhere where the slave population kind of either stayed or migrated to, the murder rate was high because they had some of that mentality. And I think it's hard to get that mentality out. And at first, the first thing I thought about was, okay, maybe it's the population because the population is really high. But then you hear things like China, which has a really high population, one of the biggest, India, really high population, Japan, small country, but really high population, and their murder rates are extremely low.
Well, so, I think the issue might be not the population size shouldn't make a difference, because at the end of the day, we're going to break it down to the per 100,000 rate. Now, it may be an issue with urban versus rural,
Yeah, how dense the population is.
Yeah, like the density, I think that might actually play a part in it. Well, check this out real quick. So,
well, even when you look at those numbers too, because China has a bigger population, but not as dense as Japan, there's still only a difference of maybe 1 or 2 people per 100,000. So that doesn't make that much of a difference.
No, it doesn't.
I think the mentality of people to say that, okay, this person's life is not worth much. And unfortunately, dealing with Black people, some Black people still have a mindset that Black lives don't matter as much. And this is Black people that will have that mindset. Just like the police, they would kill another Black person rather than go out and kill somebody. Not saying it's better to kill anybody, but to them, they will respect another race that comes into their area quicker than they would a Black person that crosses their path. There are people out there like that. Not saying it's a lot of people, not saying it's everybody, but I'm saying it's 68 people, Black people getting murdered by Black people out of 100,000.
Interesting. So that might be one thing. What else do you think might cause that?
Well, could be gangs, could be drugs, could be poverty. Poverty is a big part of it, but other countries that don't seem to have a lot of money, other countries have areas that are more poor and have a lot more poverty, and they don't murder people at that rate. So can't say it's poverty. I mean, it's got to be a mindset. It's got to be something in your brain that says, you know what, when somebody kills somebody else, it's either one or two things. It's either self-defense or murder or an accident. So one of three things. They kill somebody because it's an accident. They kill somebody because it's self-defense. They're trying to defend themselves. Or they kill somebody because it's a murder and they were trying to kill somebody for whatever reason. They were angry, or maybe they had a plot. They wanted something. They were hating, So
I thought about something different, and tell me what you think about this idea. Okay. I heard a few people actually give this theory before on YouTube. I think I'll go ahead and I'll give the credit to O'Shea Duke Jackson. He was talking about, strongmen, African strongmen, and how in order to be a ruler in Africa, you had to be ruthless as hell. And he would give examples like Idi Amin. He gave a couple other ones, right? But the point was, you had to be the penalty for stepping outside, because Black people are a little bit more. We respect strong men a little bit more. The penalty for committing a crime has to be so severe, i.e., I'm looking at countries like Kenya, I'm looking at countries like Ghana, which has a very low murder rate. And having visited that country, I can tell you it was a very peaceful country, and I can tell you that the children were super well behaved. But also, if somebody did step out of line, they were more apt to police themselves, i.e., they would, if they catch somebody stealing, they're going to beat the shit out of that person themselves. Like, no police needed. They may even kill that person or maim that person. And that would cause people to be a little bit more fearful of ever going that far where they would, murder somebody or steal something or whatever else. Where in the United States, not only do people murder or kill, but then there's a no snitch attitude. So people are just so, what's the word I'm looking for? Well, they don't care, apathetic, whatever else, about murder and crime, that they won't even report the murder and crime, let alone police themselves. So they would instead, complain about how bad of a job the police are doing or how evil the police are. But they will not even report that, hey, this person committed a crime, this person robbed my neighbor's house. There's this no snitch mentality, where in Africa it's more of a strongman mentality, and in order to lead a group of people, you have to be ruthless. The crimes have to be hard. What we might look at as cruel and unusual punishment, maybe not so much there.
The first part of it, the strongman thing, I think that's a little shaky, because there's a lot of different races that believe in the strong, powerful man has to be the leader. Latin people tend to have that same belief. And, there's been strong, powerful leaders pretty much in every race where they were kind of much ruthless and killing people, but they've kind of evolved away from that. I think the other part, the no snitching and the self-policing, that part right there might have hit gold. And I say that for the simple fact that in the US, vigilantism is frowned upon very bad. Like, they don't believe people should go out and commit their own or resolve their own issues and crimes, because we got the police and we pay a lot of money for them, and they want them to do their job and they want to make sure it's done right. We have a overbloated legal system. So
process and everything else.
Yeah. And then our crimes, I mean, we're very, and I've never been in jail, so I can't say, it's easy or anything like that, but giving people years in solitary, or not in solitary, years in a federal prison is a lot different than beating the hell out of somebody, possibly maiming them, off site, just from a bunch of people in your neighborhood. I mean, in the US, they kind of, I think a lot of criminals, and not saying I know everything about it, but I believe we do kind of have a Robin Hood fetish, where the people will do something bad, but then they're really good people. They give to the community. The drug dealer that buys turkeys for Thanksgiving and different things out there and get some money back to the poor people. So I mean, it's a really complicated. I think America has a very complicated history with crime, just like they do with racism, just like they do with slavery, just like we do with guns. So our situation is way different. I think what it takes for us to change it, you can't really attack guns. You can't really attack, the institution.
People will say that it's a gun, it's our guns or whatever else. But if we look at Britain, all right, and look at the crime, I believe it was 1 month, maybe it was March or April of this year, Britain had a higher, or London had a higher murder rate than New York City. And, they don't have guns to shoot each other. So there were actually just a lot of stabbings. So the gangs out there were stabbing each other. And unfortunately, these again were mostly young Black men. Britain, see if I'm gonna pull this up, little stabbings.
Yeah. I mean, so what you're telling me is attacking weapons is going to help. What you really have to attack is people's mindset. Attack people, get them to commit to being better than that. We have to frown. We do frown upon crime in the U.S.
Yeah,
but we have to help people understand that they're better than that. That there are other options. I think the disparity in the U.S., like, you go to another country, And there are areas where the people are really rich, areas where the people are really poor, and sometimes they butt up against each other. I don't know. I just don't feel like I feel like the poor people in the U.S. Now I don't know what I'm talking about here, so I'm not even gonna really get into that. I might say something stupid, and I kind of feel like that might be a stupid thought that's coming out. See, here's the truth.
Don't be afraid.
No, here's the truth. Every thought that comes in your head is not the most intelligent thought. Well, so you don't need to be tweeting everything. This goes out to everybody in the world. Just don't tweet everything and don't say everything off the top of your head because that's ridiculous.
Well, all right, we know you don't believe it, but now tell me what you were thinking. I know you don't believe it.
Well,
you're not.
I was saying like the poor people in the U.S. because we have so much stuff, so much advertisement, so much greed kind of forced in their face and affluence forced in their face all the time through commercials, through music, through movies, television. I think it makes them sometimes get unrealistic expectations of what they should be able to do, even though they don't have the money to do it. And that might put them in situations where they would overextend, put themselves in situations where they might have to go commit crime in order to make it. Why is my dog making this weird noise? Did I tell you get in that crate?
Well, I'll say.
Go in your bed. Go. Go in your bed.
I mean, you call that a crazy idea, but that's actually a very common belief. And it might be the best answer. Just that not only that, you have people that are poor, but then you also have them where they're looking at a lifestyle that is better and wealthier than their own, which causes them not to be happy. Where if you're dealing with a country that just has a different type of culture and less income distribution, or maybe just a smaller middle class or a smaller set of rich people, so the majority of people don't live as well, that doesn't mean necessarily that those majority of those people are going to be unhappy. To me, in being, in a few different countries, not just Ghana. Ghana was the most peaceful country. But then in Brazil, once again, in the Americas, once again, descendants of slaves, it was a lot of crime, right? So it was places I would be, and I felt, so this feels just like Africa. This feels very peaceful. And somebody would come and tell me, like, do you know where you're at right now? Do you know what time it is? You need to leave this place. Or somebody would say, we're being followed right now. And I'm just not that I was oblivious to those things, but I thought everything was all good. But the statistics will tell you that Brazil is a dangerous country. A lot of these numbers, remember, we have to remember to where they will give us a racial data. It's important that we just look at that subsection of African Americans or Africans or blacks, unless the country is something like Haiti, where it's 95% black, or Jamaica, where it's 90% black. Well, then what's the point of breaking the numbers out at that point, right? Because the majority of the European countries have this extremely low murder rate, and the majority of the Asian countries have a very low murder rate. So we're trying to not fix any issues. Well, we're really just trying to draw out and see what the issue is, and then look at the outliers for those countries like Ghana, like what was it, Burkina Faso, or there's another West African country.
Well, I think first of all, what we have to do is the people who are doing murders, basically, whoever they are, they need to understand that life is precious, right? Because if you're killing people, you don't really feel like life is precious. Not all life. You think, oh, this person is whatever. He's less than, I can take his life. It doesn't mean anything. Or maybe he'll give me some street cred, whatever. So if we get that mentality to more people that life is precious, all life, black life, white life, all the exact same, all life is precious. We can get that out there. And I guess we got to get it to black people who are committing a lot of the murders. I think that's going to be a step in the way of changing. Because if, like I said, if we talk about Thomas Sowell and what he was saying, that mentality that's been kind of plaguing the black population since slavery, say there were 100, just keeping the numbers simple, 100 black people who thought that, and that was all the slaves in the U.S., and they thought that. You have a certain percentage, maybe 10%, that gets educated, and maybe somewhere along the line, as they get educated and become more affluent, they change their mindset. And they have children, and possibly they change their children's mindset. But some of their children, since there's no microcosm, all black people kind of can interact to some degree, might pick up some of that crap from the 90% of the slaves and 90 slaves that had that mentality and never got rid of it. So it's like you constantly have that element. Maybe it's in rap music, maybe it's in gangs, whatever. That element's always there, so that if we slip and let our children fall into it, they become exposed to it, and they start thinking this is the way to be. This is cool because kids like cool.
What do you think about when Africans come to the U.S.? Let's say they come from a place like Ghana or Nigeria, and they say, "Hey, don't interact with African Americans. They're violent, they're poor, or they're ignorant." Not saying that all of them say that, but that is very common among the population, that we don't understand that. And we're saying, well, Nigeria can't be that damn safe. Ghana can't be that damn safe.
Well,
who's wrong?
Honestly, I wouldn't say that they're wrong for saying that. I mean, here's the thing, and this might be counterintuitive of the way the world is kind of leaning right now, where everything is all equal and everybody has great friends that are in all different races and everything's all no prejudice whatsoever, right? If there truly is no prejudice, then there's nothing wrong with saying, just if I'm Nigerian, I'm just going to talk to Nigerian people for a while. And then everybody else, you got to get to know them. I'm open to get to know African Americans, whatever. But yeah, maybe some of us are dangerous. Maybe they shouldn't get to know everybody. And some of it, like we talked about, I think, 2 weeks ago, we talked about style. Some of it's going to come from the style of dress that these people are wearing and what they're doing. That's a way for you to look at somebody and be like, you know what? I really probably don't need to interact with that person. Be they African American, be them white, be them, African, Nigerian, whatever. If they dress a certain way, they carry themselves a certain way, you're going to look and say, you know what? Nah, not somebody I really want to deal with. Let me keep it moving.
And it also has to do with where you're at. And I'm not saying you discriminate against anybody in any hood, but let's look at the murder rates in Chicago and see where the deadliest hoods are, because this is a breakdown of the deadliest hoods. And the deadliest hood is Austin. You had 83 homicides in Austin. You had, and this is the other thing. We have to look at how many people are getting shot, right? So 384 wounded. Austin is a predominantly black neighborhood. Yes, 84 people get shot, and they didn't die. But still, I think you want to add this into the likeliness of just being shot in the ass and maybe surviving, or maybe having to eat out of a bag, or have a bag connected to your bowels.
Colostomy bag.
Right.
Yeah, I mean that's important, man. That's the real deal.
Right.
But I mean, these people who are shooting all these people in Austin, they're not going to downtown Chicago committing the murders. They're doing it right in that one little area. So if you stay the hell out of Austin, stay your dumb ass out of Austin, you won't be shot. Most likely.
What's the population of Austin? Let's look at that real quick. What is the population of Austin?
Whatever it is, minus me. That's what it should always be.
But I'm trying to do. What I want to do is just say that not everybody in Austin. What is the population of Austin?
You're gonna get Austin, Texas, probably.
You're right. Austin neighborhood, NEIG neighborhood, Chicago. I know I misspelled population. Everybody, we'll fix that. Okay. What's the population of Austin, Illinois? 97,640. So just about 100,000. But that's actually not bad. I mean,
Well, wait a minute. You said Chicago, they got for 100,000 people, 38 get murdered, right?
Austin has 100,000 people, 97,000. Let's call it 100,000, and let's say
How many murders there?
It's 83, so almost one per. That'd be like eight. Let's call it round up to 100 to make it easy.
Well, no, because wait, it's 83 murders, and they got 100,000 people, so it's 83 per 100,000.
Yeah, it's like 1 per thousand, or 100 per.
Or that's double the rate of Chicago itself.
Got it. I mean, it's dangerous. I get it. I get that that's like horribly dangerous. But the point I'm trying to just draw out of that is that not everybody in Austin is dying, right? So it would take 100 years of them murdering at that rate to kill everybody if the population were to grow or shrink because of other reasons. Right?
Well, yeah. I mean, realistically, the number, when you take it by 100,000, if there's 100,000 people and 83 of them are going to die, I would take those odds. I mean, if I had to do it to gamble for whatever, I could take those odds. I got an assignment to go down to Austin and work there and live there for a year or two, I think I would be okay, because it depends on who you're dealing with.
Right.
And I probably wouldn't deal with anybody.
Right. But there's probably some people that live there that are good people, right? There's probably some people that live there that go to work and do exactly what you're talking about. And there's probably even a couple of good block clubs or people who are trying to fight the crime. I'm sure not everybody in Austin is a horrible person. And
right. But ask this question, though. Ask this question, because when we talk about safety, this is the thing. Would you raise your family there?
Well, you would take.
I would gamble my own life.
You would take the odds if you had to, but
not to raise my family.
When you set that next to some of these nicer neighborhoods like Lincoln Park or Lakeview, where let's see how many of these crimes actually happen in Lakeview. And I'm sure there's a few because it's still the city, and some people do cross the boundaries. Well, how many people live in Lakeview? Let's see that first. How many people live in Lakeview neighborhood? Now, Lakeview is also a very big neighborhood. So let's see, Chicago, and that's 98,000. So same population. How many murders? How many murders in Lakeview neighborhood, Chicago? Lakeview crime. These are all, we're just looking at murders. Per 100,000 people, it says 28.1, which still isn't fucking awesome. Maybe that I should have chosen like Lincoln Park, because I think Lakeview has Uptown in it. Lakeview may have a conglomerate with Uptown, and Uptown is kind of a bad North Side neighborhood. Let's say Lincoln Park. I'm trying to
you got me looking up where I'm at now, man. Let me see. There's 26,000 African Americans living here as of 2010, so that's old.
Lincoln Park, Chicago. $64,000 people. Livability. That's a good crime. All right. I don't want to waste too much time doing this because it was a crime right here. D. Chicago. Okay, this is just Chicago. We want to look just murder NA. That means there are none. It was the same for Lakeview, actually. I looked at this graph wrong. So Chicago was 28 per 0.1 per 100,000. Lincoln Park had 0 murders. It says NA. Let's go back.
Hey, where I'm at, man, Arlington, Texas has 4.8 murders per 100,000. There's only 26,000 black people, like 300,000, almost 400,000 people here.
So what do you think about Ghana? The country of Ghana has a lower murder rate than your your city.
That's interesting.
Murder rate for Lakeview is actually NA. So there are no murders in Lakeview. So knowing that, even that, or they're just not reporting them. But like I said, it's a neighborhood on the north side of Chicago. The north side of Chicago is not where the crime happens. The majority of the crime happens on the south and west sides of the city. Right. So I mean, so again, going back to Austin as an example, no, yeah, you would take the odds if you had to. If somebody was paying you or contracted, you know, it's a contracting, you had a contracting job there that was paying $100,000 a year, and you need to live in the city in this neighborhood, you'll probably do it. But when it stands up next to a better neighborhood, which there are a trillion better neighborhoods than the Austin neighborhood of Chicago, you're going to take that better choice because it's safer, and you're not going to see the thuggery or the robbery or the murder or the threatening looks.
And if you have children, they won't be exposed to that, because that's every person, every adult who has children, that's the most vulnerable part, you know, your kids, because you can't be there everywhere. You have to trust the world in a lot of instances to kind of help keep your kids on track.
Murder is like that one thing that, you know, you can't come back from. And that's why I get a little bit frustrated when people really get hung up on how many black men were killed by the police, and we can get into all those metrics, because we can get into those metrics and there's a lot of arguments to be had on both sides there. But when it comes to how many black men are killing other black men, and what we're putting the majority of our focus set is on, you know, police killing black men, which is such a small number. So even if we were to completely eradicate that, we would still have this issue of black men killing black men in Chicago, in Atlanta, in Baltimore, because once again, the only reason New York has a smaller number of homicides than Chicago is because New York has a smaller percentage of black people. Right? And that's not
that sounds racist, man. Why you being so racist?
It sounds racist, but let's be for real. Because if you look at Atlanta has a higher murder rate. It has a higher murder rate than Chicago, although it's smaller. It has some like 400,000 and some people, right? Chicago has 2.7 million people, but Atlanta is also a blacker city. You look at Maryland, a smaller city, higher murder rate. You look at New Orleans, smaller city, higher murder rate. What do they all have in common? They all have a very high black population.
Okay, so if I buy into that, and say, okay, it's the black population, how do you fix it? Do you fix it by having police go out and kill the black people? No, I think that's a bad idea.
Nobody said that.
That's what I'm saying. It's a bad idea, but some people are actually doing it. That's why I'm mentioning that. I think the way to properly fix it would be to change the mindset of the black man in those instances where they're becoming murderers, right? We do have to have our own commandments. I mean, we've got religion. There's Christianity throughout the black population, just like there's Christianity throughout all the rest of them. There's Jews. There's a amalgam of religion. We have to change our mindset to say life matters. Killing is wrong. And one of the ways I want to try and address this is I want to write, I'm going to make black man commandments. You know, how to be a good black man. And change this narrative of who we are and why, you know, areas that have the highest crime rate happen to be areas where the largest black populations are. You know,
let's talk about Ghana. And I think people are, maybe we're just not accepting that. Maybe there are some things in Ghana that we can just look at Ghana, see what they have going on. Look at the countries, the black countries that have the lowest murder rate, and those are mostly African countries. The countries, those black countries that are in the Americas have high murder rates. But if you look back at Africa, even if you look at some place like Senegal, who has a murder rate of somewhere around 9 per 100,000, that's still 6 times as low as that murder rate in Chicago. Is probably on par with Madison.
But if we look at Ghana,
we're talking about Ghana with 15 or 20 million people. So you're talking about this large group of black people that are thriving. They're not all the same, right? Meaning you have different subsets of black.
So what are we going to take away from them, though? Like you get all these American black men to say, okay, now I'm looking at Ghana. Are they going to try and adopt Ghanese ways? Like, do they have a certain religion? Do they have a certain what is it about Ghana that makes it different?
Exactly. So I mean, that's what we have to observe and we have to see, right? The culture. It's definitely, it comes down to culture. I'm not saying that it's genetic. I'm not just saying we're more violent people or anything like that. I'm saying it's probably due to our culture. And if you look at Jamaican
Right.
culture, you look at American culture, they're not that far apart because a lot of our culture is actually influenced by Jamaica and vice versa because they
Came
have.
from slavery. That's what we were talking about earlier. The culture, a lot of what we have in our black culture came from slavery. I mean, it's just the way we were introduced to the American way.
And then,
We were the bottom. We were the bottom part of it because we were told that black people had no value other than animals. We were one third of a person, and we were constantly getting the boot stomping down on our heads, like or kicking us in the ass, right? So
yeah,
then all of a sudden they say, okay, well now you're equal, with a tongue in cheek kind of, yeah, you're equal, but we're fighting to get our equality, really.
right.
So I
Then
mean,
look at Honduras. I mean, we can make that conclusion, but then look at Honduras. Honduras is not black. It has a very small black population, but it has a much higher murder rate. It has a murder rate of around 85 per 100,000. All right. So you could say, hey,
right.
maybe this is because of the drug trade. You look at Honduras. You look at Mexico.
Hmm.
You look at there's a few other black or
Yeah,
two.
but I mean, as we're looking at it, what can we do to fix it, to try and curb it a little bit? Because if we start, everybody can stare at Ghana all they want to, but if they go out, stare at Ghana, and then come back and shoot their brother for something, then it's not helping. We need
Well,
to
I'm not saying no,
actively.
no, 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 no. You're missing my point. I'm not saying that people who are murdering people need to go to Ghana and look at Ghanese people. I'm saying you're murdering people, man. Look, there's no coming back from murder. You murder somebody, you just need to spend some time in jail. I think that's how you fix that. You murder somebody, go sit down. All right, I'm
But
talking
that's
about
not
black
that's not
people.
fixing it.
My concern is the black people who aren't murdering anybody. The black people who just happen to be in bad environments and maybe they need to get out. The black people who are doing well, doing okay, and have a negative view about what they think Africa is, or maybe they have a negative view of what they think about uh, black excellence, black success, black. You have this. What's what I'm looking for? You get out, you feel bad for escaping, or survivor. We call it
That crab survivor's guilt.
survivor guilt, right? They're dealing with survivor's guilt and everything else, and they're trying to find these reasons why the hood is the way the hood is, and it's like I know
It's
Rob,
not just
you be up against the biggest tide in the world trying to go into the hood and fix the hood. My
no,
aspect,
no, no.
the way I think we fix those type of issues is you go into the hood and you find out who has the most potential in the hood to succeed without the hood, and you get them out the hood. Like, but I think normally when we go in the hood, we try to fix the
Okay,
person that has the most issues. And I say you go in and you take out the people who don't have that many issues or people who have issues that you can fix. But don't
that's a
try
good idea, but that's
to.
not fixing any murder rates. That's not going to fix the murder rate because the murderers are still going to be doing the same thing unless we change their mindset. And you don't have to go into the hood to change their mindset. If you can get that message to them in the right way, they will change their mindset on their own because you can't really change people. It's kind of like when you're dating a girl and you're dating all the women, whatever, and a woman says, oh, she's going to change you. She can't change you. All she could be is herself. And if she's the right one, then you'll change yourself. So if you put that right information out there, if you package it the right way, people start thinking about it, get them to step out of whatever that mental funk they're in, that will change the situation. Because that next time that person gets into a situation, or maybe somebody who is heading down that road where they might get into a situation and say, I'm gonna shoot this person, I'm gonna kill this person, they might decide, you know what, it's not that serious. Maybe life does matter. Maybe this black person that I'm thinking about murdering, maybe his life matters. We have to get that message out there. The whole Black Lives Matter movement, that was a real thing. I mean, it got thrown under the bus in a lot of ways, but the world has to understand, especially Black people, our lives matter. And because it is so much Black on Black crime, we really have to make sure that we understand that. Make sure we're telling our kids that. Make sure our kids are telling their friends that. Make sure that it's put out in church. Look, our lives matter. We're not less than, you know? So I mean, it takes some activity.
This is
And then while you're doing that, you do take the talented people and you put them, you know, in ways where they can be safe and let them blossom.
This is another thing I'm looking at also. South Africa, which is probably the most European or most Western country, not probably, definitely, that's the most Western country in Africa, has a murder rate of 33 or 34 per 100,000. High, that's high by African standards, right?
Mm-hmm.
You look at another country like Botswana in Southern Africa, also has a high, it's very European or whatever. It's not super European like South Africa, but it's near South Africa. And it cuts almost in half down to 15 per 100,000. I'm sliding up to the Ivory Coast, 11 per 100,000. Now, once you start getting to 11, 10, I can live with that. So that's not a country that, you know, it's not safe. But if I figure it's 6 times safer than the south side of Chicago, I can take those odds. Haiti, 10 per 100,000. Now, Haiti is the most African country in the Americas. Jamaica, right next door to Haiti, right, but not as African. It's pretty African, not as African. And where's Jamaica? Control file.
Let me see. While you're all over there in Haiti, I'm gonna move to Austin, Texas.
Well,
much lower murder rate.
47 per 100,000. I think Haiti's probably has a better rate than Austin, Texas. But
well, not in the white areas.
No, but no, as a whole. Look at Austin, Texas as a whole, and tell me what is the rate for Austin, Texas as a whole.
But I'm not gonna live in all of Austin, Texas. I'm gonna live in the white areas where they got the colleges and stuff. I'm cool.
What is the murder rate? I hear you.
Let's see, homicide rate in the United States.
In Houston.
Okay, Austin, 4.1. It's not bad.
Houston, Texas.
In all of Austin is 4.1.
Houston,
and Texas as a whole is 5.3 per 100,000.
All right, but let's see what Houston, Texas is. I'm looking at so Austin is a pretty nice city. Houston, Texas is bad, man. Houston, Texas has a pretty high murder rate.
Yeah, I wouldn't move there. I've heard bad things about Houston. They ain't got to tell me twice.
Look at Dallas. How about Dallas, Texas?
Dallas, I think, is pretty bad too, actually. The actual downtown or the city area. Let me see. Dallas, Texas.
Dallas is worse than Dallas murder rate is 12.5 per 100,000.
Yeah, that's pretty high.
Okay, but we just look at this. Haiti's murder rate as a whole, and you're talking about 11 million Black people that really are more closely, they have their cultures more closely tied to Africa than any other country in the Americas. And they have a lower murder rate than Dallas, Texas. So why are people afraid to go to Haiti? Don't be afraid to go to Haiti. Haiti's safe.
Maybe they're not scared. Maybe they just don't want to pay a ticket to fly all the way over there and be outside the United States. Well, to live. I mean, to visit, yeah. But you talking about visiting it versus living in another country? Well, it's not just.
I haven't mentioned anything about living in another country on this blog. I said, well,
okay.
Why are people afraid to visit a place like Haiti? When they think Haiti, most people think, oh shit, that's dangerous. Well, okay. I'm just trying to get over people's misconceptions.
Oh, okay.
Safer in Haiti.
Well,
Texas.
You're safer when it comes to murder.
Yeah,
That's for sure. We could say that.
yeah.
But when it comes to earthquake, when it comes to faulty buildings that will fall down on you, you might not be safer. That just all depends. So you're always giving up something.
Yeah, and so it's just misconceptions that people might have, and it's not so much me even saying, okay, like I like your idea about your t-shirts, 10 black man commandments, whatever else. Yeah, we got those too. Just so you know, I think
What are they?
it's a few people have written like books on what black people need to do.
What are they?
The one Tavis Smiley had one.
I mean, what are the commandments? We can tell. We know the 10 Commandments of the Bible. Why don't we know the 10 Black Commandments?
I mean, you can if you grab the book. I mean, I'm sure it's like spend money in your own neighborhood and all this stuff. You got it. What I'm saying is that they're out there. So we don't even have to go and recreate any wheels. Like it's already.
I won't recreate. I will only create. I'm not recreating nothing.
I'm not knocking the idea, right? That's what I'm saying. I'm not knocking. I'm saying it's good, but I'm saying that exists also. So it's not like it's a brand new idea because it's like people have written these books.
But so everybody hasn't seen it.
Let's do it because the more people you get to do that, the better. What I'm saying is, it's less about fixing it, right? It's more about just knowing. Like people need to know, well, this is how safe you are in this country or in this area, and this is how not safe you are here. And Chicago, just like people, whenever somebody says Chicago is so dangerous, and that gives Chicago as a whole a very bad image, which makes it harder for us to land things like Amazon headquarters or whatever else, right? Because when people think Chicago, they think dangerous. Okay.
When they think cold.
When they think, Brooklyn, when they think Atlanta, I mean, you need to be thinking that also because the murder rate there is actually higher than Chicago's. I get tired of people coming to me and say, "Oh, you're from Chicago? Oh man, it's so messed up there. This and that." Like, no, it's an awesome city. Just if you're on the south side, wear bulletproof vest or don't go in don't go in the neighborhood. Like people need to understand the minutia so they can make the right decisions and not have misconceptions about places. So nobody should be thinking that Africa is more dangerous than the south side of Chicago or anything like that. Like actually, no, it's a lot safer. Nobody should be thinking that Haiti is more dangerous than Jamaica. Just know that there is a difference there. And they're right next door. Haiti's right here. Jamaica's right here. Why is Jamaica more dangerous than Haiti? Like we have to be able to look at that and make a good observation so we can say, oh, maybe the culture, maybe it's the culture. Maybe that African culture actually works for black people. Maybe it's because of how homogenous it is or whatever else. And people can call that racist. But if what I'm saying is actually going to end up saving somebody's life, I'll say it.
All right. That's for you. I mean, yeah, that's a good point. That is a very good point. Safety is important. And if you're thinking about gun violence and violence in general being murdered, that is a really key point of being safe. Of course, there's other parts of being safe, but that's not relevant right now. We're talking about murders and stuff like that. So that makes sense.
There's no coming back from murder. I mean, like if I rob you, I can pay you back. I can apologize. If you're raped, as horrible as that is, I know some people have to get raped, they might want to die. But if you're raped, at least you have your life, you have your testimony, and you can overcome that. But if you murder somebody, there's no coming back from that. You know, that's something you can't give back. And the only way to really atone for that is you need to spend some time in the cage. You need to sit down for a little while. Now, I know in certain countries like Ethiopia or was it Somalia? I think it may have been Somalia. I thought it was very interesting how they dealt with murder, where if you murder somebody, that person's family, this is like Sharia law, that person's family actually makes the judgment on whether you die or you live in jail or you can pay blood money. You can pay them money and they can just forgive you. But this is the deal. If they choose that you need to die, they have to kill you. The state will not kill you. The state will give them the gun and say, okay, get your revenge. Now, That's interesting. And that's something like we have Americans will look at that and say, well, that's cruel and unusual punishment. But if somebody kills my loved one, and now I have the right to kill that person, which is what we would do normally anyway. You think about it, a blood kills a Crip, the Crip retaliates because the Crip's brother retaliates because the blood killed his brother or something like that. I mean, that's what we do anyway. And
yeah, that's what some people do.
Or Somalia is sanctioned. They say, okay, that's how we're gonna get down.
Here's the thing with that though. When you deliver a punishment, you are punishing yourself, right? No matter what the punishment is. So if it's whooping somebody and you got to go through that stress of actually causing somebody pain for your children, if it's making somebody stay late to finish something that they were supposed to do, you have to spend time with them late to make sure it gets done right. If it's killing somebody because they killed somebody and you want to kill them back, you got to put that on your soul. So I mean, if it's a blood in the Crip and they're doing that back and forth thing as a gang thing, I get it. But at the same time, an intelligent person, I think, or somebody who's a little more enlightened, would look at that and say, "Damn!" When they take that punishment away from the state and you put it in the hands of the family, you're kind of putting a lot of undue stress on that family. First of all, to all come together and agree on what's the best course of action. Secondly, somebody's got to put that on their soul. Third, if it is blood money, now they say, okay, I want $1 million blood money from killing my nephew or my family member at this point. How are they gonna enjoy spending that money, right? How they'll get the money and they're like, man, I bought this with somebody's life. It's not like that whole, whenever you punish somebody, you're punishing yourself. So I almost would rather the state handle whatever the situation is, make that decision. I almost prefer the way we have it here a little bit better. I just wish we had a better justice system. And that's a lot of involvement for somebody who's already grieving.
Yeah. I mean, most people, not most, I don't know. I think I would want to be involved. And even if you don't want to kill that person, you can say, okay, I just want this person to spend the rest of their life in prison. Then you can do that. You can tell the state, just lock them up. But if you decide that you want this person killed, you have to do it yourself. So
yeah,
the parent, instead of saying, okay, we don't endorse the death penalty, they say, okay, we'll endorse the death penalty, but we're not going to pull the trigger for you. We're not going to flip the switch for you. We're not going to, give that injection for you. You have to do it.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy, man.
Creative ideas that they have in their justice system, where it's like, okay, we frown on it here, but can you really knock them if it works for them? If that works for them there, where they have a lot lower murder rate, then maybe they're doing something right. I'm not saying this.
But I don't think. Here's the thing. I don't think you deter murder or any type of crime really by stricter penalties. I think you would deter murder by having people be smarter and know the value of life. That's the only way you really can fix a situation and make somebody not murder somebody and not steal. Like, if people don't respect property, if everybody's immoral, then they're just going to steal. You can say in countries where they would cut somebody's hands off for stealing.
Let me call you back in just a minute, right?
I'm almost done anyway. But in countries where they would cut somebody's hand off for stealing, you will find some one-handed people or some no-handed people, because people will still steal in those countries, knowing good and well they could lose their hand, right? You have to have people that say, you know what, stealing is wrong. My moral compass tells me that that's not what I need to do. I need to find another way. And that's how you fix those situations. You're not going to do it with punishment. Punishment is just like okay, I deal with it. It is what it is. If they don't kill me for it, fine. I'll risk my life to kill you because I hate you that much. I don't care, because you're not making the most rational decision anyway when you're doing the crime, right? Yeah. You're making a horrible decision.
So we count just for murder. Like we said, when we're talking about crime, there are other types of crime. We're tackling murder because murder is something that we say you can't come back from. And then we look at the fact that I don't know for a fact that Somalia has lower murder rate than the United States, but I believe they probably have a lower murder rate than Black Americans as a whole. And then we have to look and say, okay, this is a different group of people, have some similarities with us, and it's going to have a lot of differences. But if not to say that their crime and punishment, or their punishment is any more severe than ours, right? Their prisons may not be as nice. This is the other thing that really tripped me out. When he talked about how many people they have in prison in a place like Ghana versus a place like the United States, I want to say it was infinitely smaller of the amount of people that they have to lock up in Ghana compared to the amount of people that we lock up in the United States. I mean, we locked up a couple of million people, and they had a couple of, maybe it was like 20,000 or something like that. And
yeah, our crime system horrible. Our criminal justice system's horrible. We lock way too many people up. Yeah, and we take advantage of them. It's a bad idea.
Yeah, so they have fewer people locked up. They have way fewer murders, and they have a much harsher look at when a person does commit a crime. Even though it happens a lot more infrequent, they slap it a lot harder. All right, so we haven't solved this issue. It's just really us taking a look, and we're not gonna bring this one to a conclusion, right? It's a lot more study to be put into that, but just something for people to think about when they watch this. How we're gonna analyze different countries, their punishment systems, their justice systems, their culture. When we look at ourselves, let's compare and contrast and see what are we doing that's making us as a subgroup of people, more violent. And then let's make those T-shirts, as Rodney was saying earlier, and let's make those books. Let's make those commandments, and let's take it from there. I really appreciate being here, Rodney. I'll let you go ahead and say your last words.
Oh, that's it, man. It's a very good conversation. And it's something that is very pertinent to what's going on today. We got to see what's happening with all the murders and stuff that's happening out in the world. So, yeah, like you said, don't be afraid to go visit places. Don't be afraid to experience life in other, situations, other countries even. Just go check it out. It's pretty safe for the most part. Don't be in the wrong places.
Stay out of those hoods, wherever you're at in the world. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.
All right.